Welcome into another exciting episode of Just Another Podcast, hosted by yours truly, Just Another Chris. And it's extra special because we got our first ever in-person podcast episode. Yes, I brought in Jake Madosik from the Bleach Bros podcast, and any longtime viewers may recognize him from my past, from another YouTube channel that I used to do back in the day, Toy Kings. I wanted to bring Jake in on this episode because I wanted to open up a little bit, get a little personal, and discuss what the heck happened to Toy Kings. But more importantly, we talk about relationships with people and business partners and how to balance the two. This is going to be a pretty personal episode, and I open up quite a bit and tell some stories I have never told before, and I really wanted to bring Jake in on this just because he had some firsthand experience because he was there during some of it. Not only will we be talking about Toy Kings, we talk about probably the most controversial topic of all time. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? And we learn about Jake's podcast and other ventures that he's got going on. This is going to be a great episode. Oh, and quick disclaimer for you video viewers. I do apologize for the first minute or two. I forgot to switch cameras. My bad. So enough talking about it. Let's dive right on in. Enjoy. Some major step up from the bin.
Oh, dude.
Remember the bin?
I loved being cramped with you guys in that little corner of a room where, especially when a shopper would come in and we'd just do the lookup, and you could tell on the video when we were filming Toy Kings, it was like, oh, somebody's here. Ignore them, but look at them to acknowledge them.
Like, oh, hang on, we got to pause real quick and get up. Jake, welcome in. I appreciate you stopping by. First in person.
Yeah, cousin Jake, whatever.
I was gonna get into that, I guess, briefly. Like the whole cousin Jake thing, it doesn't really work anymore.
Oh no, it's that's awkward. But I mean, it's not awkward for me. I don't know if it's awkward for other people. But I mean, I guess we can consider ourselves still cousins.
Okay, that's fine.
I mean, it was for a while, and we're close, and whatever, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we can call it whatever we want.
You know what I forgot to do? No, they have yet to see your face.
Oh, okay.
I forgot to push the button.
That's fine.
Now
There's
the video.
button. So
now the video form.
The
people
hot pink.
can
Yeah.
actually see Jake. You video watchers, I apologize.
Before we get into it, because my show is NSFW.
That's fine.
Okay, I can say whatever I want here.
I mean, I could put a disclaimer, but yeah, I try to sort of keep it. So
I ask because you know me.
Yeah, I know. I know exactly. I should have mentioned that prior. But there is an extended version for Patreon members, so maybe all that topics.
Or I say fucking and all that.
Yeah, I guess that will be in the extended version. Since it's nearly Christmas, this comes out the day before Christmas Eve. I gotta ask you a very controversial question. It's the biggest one of all time. And I have a feeling that you might agree with me.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you know where I'm going with this too.
I think I do. I'll go.
Very controversial. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
No, it's not.
Yes.
No.
See?
I had a whole argument. With this with my mom. You know what's funny? My mom was on the phone the other day. She goes, "Do you consider it a Christmas movie?" I said, "No." Now, mind you, I'll say this, and people can hate me for it. Gremlins is my favorite Christmas movie of all time.
Okay.
My wife tried to say that it wasn't a Christmas movie, and then I'm like, well, they're shopping for a tree.
Yes, that's
the song Christmas comes out. The main character's a damn Christmas present himself.
It's a Christmas movie, but
right.
Die Hard, no.
No, it's around Christmas.
Reindeer
Games is a Christmas movie then.
So I this past weekend, what's today? No, on Wednesday, I was over at my sister's. And every year, at least for the last 5 years or so, we get some people together and we watch Die Hard and we turn into a drinking game. And we put the Santa hats on the TV, people wear them, we drink. There's key moments. Then we roll dice and we take shots for the lowest number type of thing. It's really fun.
Right.
And every year we have our arguments. I'm the only one that thinks it's not a Christmas movie.
That's fine.
And this year there was 2 new people that showed up, and one of them had never even seen the movie. So we were able to say, hey, we're going to watch this and you're going to tell us if it's a Christmas movie. The verdict was this, what was her name? Jessica? Lindsay. Her name was Lindsay. My sister's fan, cosplayer, I guess. But she did say it was a Christmas movie, but it's the worst Christmas movie of all time. It's a
hot take.
Yeah, it is. So I'll tell you mine in a second, but I would love to know what your reasoning as to why it's not a Christmas movie.
Because everybody else says it is, and screw people.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not a good reason.
Here's the thing. It's I have when you base a movie, during a time frame, it does not equate to it being part of the holiday. The difference is if the holiday is invoked so much into the film to where it's important, in the sense of like, is Santa involved in the movie? Is this and that? Is there a Santa in the background? Probably. Is there a tree in the background? Yeah. Are they having a party for it? Yeah. But is it an important factor? And what I mean by that, Fred Claus. We know it's a Christmas movie. It's about Santa Claus, right? But it's the fact it's about a bachelor crappy guy, but Christmas is invoked into the movie, okay? Sure. The Gremlins, Christmas is invoked into the movie.
Mm-hmm. The motivation.
Right? Yes, the whole motivation is still around Christmas. Right. So Die Hard's motivation is not around Christmas.
Yeah, but everyone's argument is, well, it's a Christmas party.
Right, but he didn't.
That's no factor. And once those terrorists
he just picked that day to do that. They could have picked the 4th of July, and is it a 4th of July movie? Nobody cares about those. It could have been Thanksgiving. Same thing. It's not. You can't make it about that.
Right.
Like Home Alone's a perfect example to counter argue this.
And I brought that up too on Wednesday.
Is the fact that it's about a robbery and about a kid being left home alone, but he's left home alone during Christmas, and Christmas is invoked into the story.
And you're presented.
That it's important.
You're presented with the soundtrack as Christmas music. The score is Christmassy. Christmas decorations are everywhere. I'll throw in snow, but that's not really Christmas. But like it's kind of like, but yeah.
It's also the deciding factor at the end is that he felt his family was important, and Christmas is a family holiday. So you have to look at it that way too.
And the second one, he saves Christmas for those orphans.
Why wasn't Die Hard 2 based around Christmas then?
This is what I tell people. It starts out like it's going to be one.
Right.
They present it that way. Like it's Christmas. There's some holiday music playing. I think he even has that bear for the Christmas gift or whatever. And then once those terrorists show up, there's no more Christmas. Like there's no more music.
No.
And then there's their argument on Wednesday. My sister was like, he literally says ho ho ho. I'm like, okay. Then there's like an hour and a half, maybe hour 15. No other
reference. Just action and desire.
Explosions. There's no Christmas mention whatsoever until the credits.
What's your favorite Christmas movie, Chris?
Oh, easy. Jingle All the Way.
Oh, it's a great movie.
Oh, yeah. I've got some set pieces.
I know.
I hadn't seen Home Alone movies, either one of them, in years. And I rewatched them recently. I forgot how good the second one was. I always thought that one was terrible. But no, I think that one actually is better than the first one. I know it may be a hot take, but he straight up murders him every single time. In the first movie, it's like
we have to up the game.
They upped it so hard though that they straight up murders Marv and Harry every time, obliterates them, and that was great.
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Okay, I was literally
the best holiday movie. It's Thanksgiving though.
I was literally in the back of my head. I was just about to say that too. I was like, I think that might be actually my other one.
That is probably one of my favorite holiday movies of all time.
Here's the other thing, going back to Die Hard, where I yielded to them in saying it was a Christmas movie because society has deemed it one, right?
So you fell into the trap. Way to go.
Well, there was like 10 of us, and they were all just drilling me for this.
You're a peer pressure dude. You going to jump off a bridge next, Chris?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, so there you go.
But no, I yielded to the point and said that it is the worst Christmas movie of all time then, because it doesn't meet any of the criterias. But it is one of those things in society where you get enough people, to vote for something, democracy. Like it's, even if the facts aren't there, like a good example would be the Wednesday show on Netflix.
I haven't watched it.
Great. I loved it. It was fantastic. But I'm sure you've seen the TikToks of the dances and stuff going around. None of it really. Wow. You escaped that.
I don't watch TikTok.
Interesting. It's usually on Instagram too. I mean, anyway.
Well, is there one? Was that the one where she's? Oh, my co-host posted a video of that. Hence why I haven't watched it, because I refuse to watch what B-Word posted about. Don't give a crap.
It was a great movie. It was a great scene, and the song in the show is the Cramps. I can't remember the song. But anyway. Great song, great scene. And on TikTok, though, it really started as a trend. The Wednesday dance, they mimic the dance, but it's to a sped up Lady Gaga song. Okay. And now everyone associates that song with Wednesday, even though it's not in the show. Yeah. And so that song that was in the show gets kind of just whatever, right? And so it's a good example of like society deeming like one thing, like, no, that's that.
Yeah, this is what it is, not that.
So that's a similar thing with Die Hard, where enough people have gone like, no, it's a Christmas movie, so by default or by its popular vote, it became a Christmas movie, even though it's not. And fun fact, Bruce Willis even claimed it's not a Christmas movie.
I know. He did that at the roast, where he came on the roast just to say it wasn't a Christmas movie. I think that was also just to get people's goat. No, I don't know. To me, it's not. I'm a contrarian, though. I'm the hater. I like to give hot takes and argue with people and like to win. But you're never going to change my mind. I would not peer pressure like Chris, where I'm just going to say, yeah, okay.
I yielded.
No, I don't yield.
I yielded to the fact that it was the worst worst Christmas movie of all time. The last like several years now, for my family, I give them these buckets, and then the YouTube channel. I've last couple of years I've shown this. Actually, you'll see it tomorrow's video. Spoiler alert. Because on the 24th I'll release it. But there's these buckets. They're Chris's world famous knick-knack shacks.
Okay.
And they're filled with just weird crap, man. This junk thing. Not junky, but like gag gifts.
Right, yeah,
Like I hit the dollar store hard, man. And they find some weird stuff, man. And so I love to raid their like DVD and Blu-ray collection, and they're just the worst movies. And last year I gave my sister a movie. It was Charla Angels. It was
well, it's like when we used to review those crappy toys from the dollar store where they're like, it's like
Spooderman.
It's
like, exactly. It's Charlie's Angels, right? And then a bunch of these other movies too. And so I gave them those for Christmas, and this year we watched some of them. And I gotta say, Charla Angels though wasn't terrible. I mean, it was bad, but like it was a fun bad movie,
right?
Like they were purposely trying.
You know it's bad, but you're like going into it like you know what you're watching, like Pacific Rim. You know you're watching monsters punch robots in the face, and that's fine. That's all you need.
Because this is the first episode where it's not really going to be focused on like photography talk. This is kind of
right.
We are going to have some, I think, some cool topics and some things I've been wanting to talk about for a long time, and you are a part of some of it. So I thought it'd be kind of.
I was. So let's hash it out, dude. Let's just get into it.
Let's hash it out.
Yeah.
The death of Toy Kings. No.
Oh, the death was here. We were there this summer coming out. Toys.
Whatever. Pretty much. But for those listening at home and watching at home, because this is in video form as well, I've talked about before, but I started this little documentary back in like 2015, I think it was. And I brought a good friend of mine on board. His name was Phil.
Lego Jet,
as known on the Toy Kings channel, which that's what that documentary turned into. It turned into more of a web series and a toy show, or like a toy talk show, which extension of it was the King's Table. But Jake came on to one of the episodes of the show.
No, I came on with Jason's episode.
Yes, which... I don't know if you heard the news of Jason.
Yes, I did. Yeah, that's very sad.
He passed away this year of cancer.
Very sad to hear. No, it was a fun episode. It was the first one that I was invited. I jumped in on the side. It was cold outside, and we went into his house of his Virgin Dome. And I say that because he said that. And we played pinball. We looked at things. I actually tried my act at camera angles for you, which the best part was you actually told me I did a decent job. Now, mind you, this comparatively to other people that were there, I did a decent job with finding an angle and shooting. But we had a blast. It turned out to be a pretty good episode, and then I got invited to the King's Table. It was a fun talk show. I mean, out of the two, I'm sure your favorite was going out and visiting the people and the collector's mind and all that stuff that you did.
Yeah.
But for me, it was King's Table.
Yeah. No, honestly, I would agree. King's Table was fun because I was like hanging out with my friends mostly, and going out to people's houses and stuff was always really fun. But it was also really, really stressful, at least on my side of it, which kind of leads into this great topic that I want to talk about.
What's the topic?
And that is Phil was supposed to be the partner of the whole thing, and he unfortunately never really rose to that level. But he wanted that title. He really wanted to. People
love titles, and I'm not in here talking shit. It's funny though in companies like I work for a corporation, and people always want a promotion just because they want to add a title to their name because they think it adds dollars, and not always that it adds dollars. I can tell a side story before we get into it. When we were getting going and we started seeing some traction, that was the time I was trying to help us shop for sponsors and stuff. And if you remember, and right out the gate, me, you, and Phil were all sitting at the table talking. And first thing out of the mouth from Phil was, well, we need to make $500 a sponsor. I'm like, well, we're nobodies. We're lucky if we get $5 and a pat on the ass and a thank you. And that's where I was at. And it was just, it's eye-opening to people, I think, when you realize the level. You have to do two things in life. You have to realize your level of importance, right? Your value. But you also have to realize the value of your product and how much work you're putting into it. So, like, for example, my show, since I'm going to plug this, is, I have Bleach Bros podcast. Yeah. We've been doing it a little over a year. My best friend, B-Word, and I host a weekly topic show. It comes out every Sundays on anywhere you get a podcast. And we're finally signed to Spreaker Prime, iHeart.
That's great.
But we've been doing it a year, and it worked out. Yeah. I mean, you've always been in the media, Chris. I've always acknowledged and enjoyed the work you do. I've always been in the media in different sets, whether I'm on TV doing cooking or sports radio or anything. But we've found a way. It's interesting when you find characters, and I'm not saying that in a downgrading way, but characters along the way that you get to know, or friends or whatever. Yeah. that treat it like it just happens. Yeah. Like a perfect example, I have so many friends, like I'm wearing this hat, right? And they're like, I want a hat. And it's like, well, it costs money. I can't just hand out $40 hats to everybody. I mean, I would love to.
Right.
But then it's funny, I'm always like, I do the asshole thing back. Do you listen? Maybe I do. No, you don't. No, let's just be honest. And it's not that I'm only going to give it to a listener, but I don't know, support back maybe. Let's just be upfront, but I'll let you get back into what you were saying. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh no! It's fine. Like I when it first started, Phil. I just want firstly, I want to say I love the guy. I still love the guy to this day.
Okay.
And the reason, and this is this year, I finally came to the realization like I need to stop trying so hard for a relationship with this guy, or like try so hard to get him to be a part of something that I know will never. It'll never happen. We just don't work well together, which is unfortunate because when we're on camera, I always felt, and the viewers, the feedback we got was always a super positive. I get people still to this day talking to me and want to talk to me about Phil and us on camera when we're coming back and doing our thing, because they always felt like our dynamic was good and what he brought to the table on camera. But outside of that, that's all he brought to the table, and I put up with it because in the very beginning, I didn't know anything about how to shoot video or edit. I mean, I kind of knew how to edit video. I took it in high school and I really enjoyed it, but he sold me on almost a lie.
Okay.
He liked to exaggerate a lot. He would tell me the projects that he has done and that they were his, to find out they weren't. And for years, I've tried to get him to show me his work, but he wouldn't show it to me, like his direct work that he only did. And it was a struggle, but I kind of just ignored it because we would have a great time once the camera started rolling, once we got to the place that we were going to, because he was like my travel companion. We would get on a plane, just fly to Texas and go film stuff. It was great. It was fun.
Right.
But everything in between all of that was always just stressful and hard because I had to supply the equipment. I'd have to pay for the trips. I'd have to pay for food. I'd pay for everything and do it all. And he would only complain. And then he would want to have the title of, co-producer or co-director, or this is his as well. We were on a podcast in California when we were traveling once, and I did that little mini documentary on Jose.
Yeah.
And which is on this YouTube channel. Actually, I put that out on here back in 2020, and it had a tragic end. And unfortunately, Jose passed away and everything. But I was like one of the last people to really document anything of him. And I was being interviewed about it, but Phil was cutting in the whole time and trying taking credit for it, even though he had no rights to it. He never did any of it. Mm-hmm. Stuff like that would always kind of bug me, but I would try to overlook it. When I brought you on, I thought it would be cool to have extra dynamics and extra people.
Well, I'll ask this. I felt when I jumped in, I already had a lot of media base.
Sure.
And I feel like I'm a good promoter. Mm-hmm. And it was the fact that when I came on the episodes, it was the fact that I brought my own nuance, but I never asked for anything. Like in the sense of a title, I was like, I'm just Jake, cousin Jake, whatever you want to call me. I'm going to be on an episode. I don't want to do editing. I don't want to be behind the camera. I don't want any credits on this. All I want to do is I want to be the face and do things, and not the whole face of the show, but that's me. Like, me is the media guy that comes up, has a good time. And, I love YouTube comments because I was a hater and the troll and all that. And a lot of people did not like me either, which was fine.
You're still a hater and a troll.
Exactly. And here's the thing. There's still people that probably fucking hated me on Toy Kings. And they also might not. There were people that loved me on Toy Kings.
It was both.
But it was the fact that I did see that. I will say there was a great poignant moment with Phil when we were filming one time. And I was giving pointers on interviews. Mm-hmm. And he took it really well, but he finally just stepped back and said, Jake, you're really good in front of the camera. Mm-hmm. I'd rather step back. The difference was it always felt like I'm going to step back, but never actually stepped back.
Yeah.
Because I know, and if I can ask you, I know you guys had a fallout between us filming at a time too, where it was we were filming, everything was going great, and then all of a sudden there was a fallout. And I was like, okay, what happened? But I did my thing, and then he came back, and then I mean, how did that go down?
We had multiple fallouts over the years. The first time was over, like Phil wanted the fame and the glory of everything and titles. Like, I'm kind of like you. I didn't care about having a title that much. I just wanted to make something. I had an idea for a documentary type thing. I thought I'd be behind the camera and just kind of produce it, create it, and bring somebody on that also knew kind of more type of thing, and it mind paying to do it if somebody knew more than me. Like, I was buying his knowledge, and I quickly found out he didn't have that knowledge. However, once we were starting and we were looking for sponsors, before you came on, I was going to toy stores and asking if you want to sponsor our project, we'll create like a video ad or something for you for Facebook or something like that. And I had a lot of people interested, and I said, okay, great, I'll put something together and get back to you, shortly. So I went to Phil and told him about it, and I was like, hey, he's like, that's awesome. I was like, great. So this is what I'm thinking. I told him a price, and he was just like, absolutely not. We need to be charging at least $2,500. I don't get out of bed for anything less than basically that. And I'm looking at him. I'm like, we are nobodies, right? I mean, you said that too. I'm like, we're nobodies. We're just starting out. Like, you
got to start somewhere,
right? So I think I had suggested we do it for like $200, maybe $300, and I thought that was even too high.
You're still being overly generous to yourself, but generous enough to them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, and then we would put like their stores like logo on the flyers and stuff, and we got a little cash and start build this little nest egg of travel basically, and do this thing. And he was like, no, I will not do it for less than this. If you're not going to agree to that, I'm out. You cannot do anything else now because my name is now attached. We filmed some stuff. And so if you don't give me this, Toy Kings is dead. That's what he told me. And we got in a big argument, and we didn't talk for about a week. And then we met back up, and he apologized and said he was sorry. And we continued on. That was the first one. I mean, again, like, I can understand it's his time. He wants to put in. He wants something out of it. I can respect that to some degree.
I'll give you this though, and I'm not trying to interrupt you. And the fact though is that friends have you're friends though too. It wasn't just business partners because there is a difference. Like when you work with people and it's just business only, and there's another factor that comes in when there's an intimate side to the relationship. Sure. In the fact that you're trying to keep both intact.
Yeah.
It's almost like a marriage, right? You got to make sure money's happy, sex is happy, and lifestyle's happy.
Sure.
And the business that you have going forward, whether it's children, marriage, or whatever. And the same thing with Phil in the sense, right? Or like when me and you work together, or all three of us work together, is the fact that we have to keep our intimate side intact and working, but also working side. The difference between me and some people, and I think you noticed this when we'd come on, is I could shut down a lot of factors, just be like, the camera's on and we're ready to go.
Yeah.
I feel that you and Phil could do that too at times, but I could also feel the tension in the room sometimes where you guys were just like, there's a problem today. We're going to record, we're going to get through it, but there's a problem today. That there's a nuance with that. There's nothing wrong with that. There's actually a greatness to that because sometimes it makes some of the best media produced things, right?
Sure.
But then there's times that you're like, wow, you could tell something's wrong in the room.
Oh, yeah. Like almost every time I'd show up to a place, there would be something wrong, right? Because Phil was late.
Right.
And Phil doesn't drive.
I remember I drove. To interrupt you. I remember one time we were filming an episode, and all of a sudden I was still trying to wrap up. We were having fun, and he goes, "Oh, I need somebody to take me to the bus station." I'm like, "Well, I'm not." And then you're like, "Well, Jake, I got to finish up here." And I'm like, "What the hell just happened? I have to give him a ride now."
Yeah, we just got there,
right?
But yeah, so like every time we'd show up somewhere, before you came on or not, like I'd have to go pick him up, right? I would have to then plan my like whole production around the fact like I got picked Phil up at like 11 o'clock, let's say. So I'd have to have everything packed, ready to go the night before. So I'm busting my ass prepping interview questions. The person I'm packing, think about the lighting setup, the audio, like storage, backups for the storage. Filling up the car with gas and stuff. Have everything ready to go the night before. Get Phil, and he's not there. All he has to do is show up to one specific. He'd take a bus and we'd meet him at a particular spot. He'd get on the wrong bus, or he overslept. One time he fell asleep on the bus. And he ended up like, I don't even know where he was. He woke up and it took him like another 2 hours to get back to where he should have gone. And so I have to either coordinate with the people that were supposed to show up and interview. And I've already told them like, hey, it usually takes about 2 hours at most to film.
Right.
But it would never be that long. It'd be way longer because Phil's, who knows what was going on with him. Or he'd just be in a bad mood. And it was up to me to like kind of babysit him and get him realigned and focused and excited about what we were doing, and he'd get mad at me. And so over the years, that just came.
It wore down. It wore down.
It was a toll.
That, like you said, that was the first one, and there's probably many instances. And
well, we haven't gone to the second time.
Okay, yeah. I'll let you get into that then.
So what happened? I don't even remember what happened exactly the second time it happened, but we didn't talk for 2 years. We went to Texas, and we did a big road trip down there, and we filmed a bunch of stuff. And we got back. It was right around kind of the time when Toy Kings pretty much just stopped.
Well, and this is where you weren't allowed to use his likeness at the time.
Yeah,
that he said.
This is where it was coming from. Yeah. Like we got into an argument about something. I don't even remember. I think maybe me bringing up the fact like, hey, I'm kind of doing everything here. Like I'm paying for it all. I'm doing it all, editing it all, producing it all. You just have to show up. And so just try and do that at least. I remember we got into an argument, and he told me like, well, if you're such a professional, then you need to be doing this, this, and this. And I'm like, okay, I can do some of that, but like I kind of put my foot down on like I want to edit. I want this segment in this video, like, and here's my reasons why. And he's like, I don't care about your reason. I don't want it in there. I'm like, okay, but you're not even in this scene. Like,
right.
It has nothing to do with you. If it was you, I can understand that. I get that. If you don't like that, if I'm recording the person and they don't want it in there, it's gone. No questions asked. Like, so, but he wasn't even in this shot. He just was like, no, I want it in there. I'm like, well, okay. And he's like, if you don't, then I'm out, and you can't use anything. You can't use my likeness on anything. The whole trip that we just did in Texas, well, you can't use it all. I'm like, you can't use any of it. And still to this day, it's just on a hard drive. But anyway, so we didn't talk for like 2 years, and I reached out to him in 2019 and said, hey, look, this is silly.
Let's bury the hatchet. Let's move on.
And we did, and we had a heart to heart. It was great. And we went to Canada. Right? We went to Canada. We went to it was like a big reveal, like we were like friends again. Right? We made a big deal of it, and people loved it. And we're back making videos, and I was landing sponsors because at that time I had Geeks Life at the time. That was my channel, and I was able to use that weight to really bring in some cool sponsors. And I made sure to bring in like sponsors that he liked, and he was super happy with it because he was getting free Lego. It was going really well. Then in 2020, we decided to resurrect the original idea of Toy Kings,
right?
The documentary. Well, to be fair, I did. So we did that live stream event that you came on, and we did a commentary of Jason's episode. Things are going okay. We didn't really raise much money, unfortunately. Wanted to do this trip anyway. We say,
right.
Screw it.
You're going to go anyways, yeah.
I've already had people lined up. I've been trying to make this this documentary for like at that particular point for like the last 5 years. We did a road trip. I brought Jordan along. Jordan couldn't pay for anything. Phil said, we'll cover you. We'll pay for it. And we just want to bring you along as extra help. And he's like, cool. So we went. The day we left, I picked up Phil. Phil gets in the car. He's just in one of Phil's moods. The day we were leaving, I'm like, I just got this sinking feeling in my stomach that this isn't going to go well. And neither of them could drive. Phil doesn't own a car. So
he didn't have it. Yeah, he doesn't have a license.
I mean, he has a license, but he doesn't have insurance.
Okay, my bad.
Yeah, doesn't have insurance because he doesn't have a car. It makes sense. Found out Jordan didn't have insurance, but he drives at that particular time anyway. So I had to drive the whole trip. We planned about a 2-week trip.
Okay.
So I'm like, all right, I got to do all the driving. Little things along the trip that were just, that piled up. First day I drove like 12 hours. Phil like pulled some food out that I paid for, and he was making a sandwich. And I was like, hey, you mind making me one of these? Phil, being the lovely Phil that he is, he chucks the bread up to the front of the seat and says, make it your damn self. I use more colorful words than that.
But, my Jake words.
Yeah, he used Jake words.
Yeah, okay.
I was like, what in the world? Stuff like that, right? Things
just
like that. Little things like that. This being a little arrogant guy. And then as we were filming, I'm like, I saw that he had set up a tripod and everything was at this wacky, crazy angle. And he said, okay, we're good to go. I'm like, it's not even level. Like he's just felt like he was purposely trying to sabotage everything. Telling him how much money we had, because we did raise some money. And I told him how much I was going to put in, and Phil said he'd match it. And I said, okay, cool. We just wrapped up the money that we have for this project, or from that we raised. So everything from here on out is on us. He's like, okay, cool. And I told him, like, okay, I'm halfway through my cover, just so you know, Phil. And then after that, you'll have to start taking over. He's like, no problem. Phil's blowing money on Lego sets. He was just having a grand old time, right? We're going to toy stores and stuff, and him and Jordan, ironically, sorry, don't mean to throw you on the bus, Jordan, but for someone that didn't have any money, he was sure spending a lot of money on toys. I said, all right, Phil, like, starting tomorrow, you're gonna have to start taking over. And he's like, what do you mean? Hey, so yeah, I mean, I'm at my end, gas, hotel,
right,
food, all that stuff. Like, I was covering up to this point. We're like a week in to the trip. He was kind of like taken off guard that he started having to pay for some of this stuff, which, like, okay. So the next day comes along, we're driving. I was like, hey, Phil, can you look up some Airbnbs and stuff? He didn't know how to do that, so I had to pull over and handle it. And I said, this is what it's going to be if you want to put in your card. And he flat out said no.
Right.
And I was like, well, where? He's like, I was like, no, man, I don't believe you that you're out of money now, so I need to see some receipts. I was like, what? By the end of the trip, it was just moral stuff like that. I'll summarize a little bit more to speed this up. But by the end of the trip, he paid for an Airbnb like once, he filled up the car once, and I think he bought some food once.
So where are you and Phil at now?
Yeah, so here's where I regret what I did.
Mm-hmm.
I should have handled this a lot better.
Okay, what'd you do?
Here's what I did.
Okay.
He pushed me so far that we were on our way home the last day, which we cut short.
Right.
Because he wanted to come home because there was a Lego convention going on, and he wanted to go to it.
Right.
And I cut the trip short by about 2 days, maybe 3. So we get home, and so it was like 10 o'clock, maybe 11 o'clock at night. We were passing Portland. He wakes up and was like, hey, take this exit and drop me off at my house. And our car's full of stuff.
Right.
Phil's where he lives, downtown. It's right downtown Portland.
I know, I've been there. Yeah.
Right, and it's peak bad stuff going down there at this time of the year, with all those riots and crazy stuff going down. And it was a Friday night, and I've tried picking up his house around that time. There's a permanent police officer, a couple of them, sitting right where the only one spot where you can kind of park, but you can't park. It's more of a safety zone. And I've almost got a ticket just by pulling up. You can't even park there for a second. And I told Phil that, and he's like, what did he say? His exact words were like, I'm sorry, I guess I missed where that's my problem. Take this exit.
Patreon exclusive word.
Yeah, it's a Jake word there. And that's when I snapped. I said, okay, Phil. I took the exit and pulled off the side of the road. I told him to get out of the car.
Okay.
And now he was like, what? I was like, Phil, I can't do it anymore. I just couldn't take it. And he's like, you seriously good? Like, what do you mean you're going to take me home? I'm like, I turned back to look at him in the car. I said, Phil, there's a million options we could do, and you chose not to choose any of those. And so this is your stop. Mm-hmm. The options were like, stay at my house at the night. I'll drive him home in the morning, type of thing. You could take an Uber. I could drop you off back at the bus station. I could drop you off at any of these Max stations right here. Those are Portland Transit for people who don't know what that is. But you chose to ignore all that and cuss at me and tell me to basically to just drop me off at a spot, which our car was loaded. It took him about 5 minutes, maybe longer, just to get out of the car with all his stuff that he bought. So there's no way we could have parked there. And he didn't understand that. So anyway, he got out of the car, and I still have not seen him to this day.
Have you talked at all?
Yes.
Okay.
I broke down and messaged him. And I apologized for, that's about maybe 6 months ago, maybe less.
Okay.
And so when I kicked him out of the car, this was January of 2021, by the way. And so about a couple months ago, I messaged him, and I was like, yo, I was pissed. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. I should have handled it a little bit better. I shouldn't have kicked him out of the car right there. I do regret that. And he didn't respond, which was fine. I figured as much. And wasn't too long ago, I was in Ohio on a job with a client, and he calls me in the middle of the night. For him, it would have been middle of the night. It was like, I was in Ohio, so it was a 3-hour time difference. So it would have been probably about 3 a.m. for him. It just in tears, just bawling. And he went off on me though. He told me some crazy stuff that he had to have been making up. Like he told me he had a chance to sleep with Tiffany, my ex-wife, for those at home, which I knew that's no.
Right.
But he said he should have done it and stuff like that. And some other weird things. And then he never apologized for his actions on the trip. I never got a chance to even talk about anything. I just kind of let him vent. And he was all laughing and stuff by the end of it and wanted to meet up. And when I told him when I get home, I'll hit him up. Got home, message him, nothing. And here's where I just finally was like, you know what? I think I need finally just to play Phil to rest and just move on with my life type of thing. And not too long ago, I was approached to potentially have turn like Toy Kings into a TV show.
Right.
Which is cool. When I originally had the conversation with these people, I told them about Phil. Like this is still, for some reason, I still felt some sort of like allegiance to him because he was a part of it. And I told them like I'd be interested in if it's a possibility to bring him along in some aspect. And they were positive in response to it. But I felt that's something I would have rather told Phil to his face rather than just a random message. And so I reached out to him several times to meet because I said I got some news I'd love to chat with you with, and he never responded. Never responded. And Jordan randomly messaged our group chat and said something, called Phil out for like, hey, why are you ghosting us type of thing. And he did respond. He just said he's busy. I brought up Toy Kings. I said I kind of want to maybe bring back Toy Kings. He's like, he had no interest. He said, nope, screw that. I'm out. I'm done. Do with it whatever you want. And then that's when I told him, like, okay, well, I got approached. His response was, oh yeah, I'm definitely interested in doing that.
But in his defense, let's play the devil's advocate here. Okay. You guys, as I said earlier in this episode, is that there's a business relationship and an intimate relationship.
Sure.
And more business got involved.
Yeah.
And so in Phil's side, you could also see it like, I don't need to be intimately involved with you, Chris, at the time. I could get into this and still do something I love because I loved it. And, I know you loved it. I know Phil Lego Jet loved it. And still maybe work and do something with it.
Sure.
Monetary value could be a thing. There's a lot of things that go into that.
Right.
But let's look at it from those eyes that you can't just say, oh, you ignored me. There's a bigger picture involved here, and now you're not ignoring me. I mean, I think most people out there would consider the fact at that. That's the way I look at it, is like you got to look at it like there's always two sides to every story, three sides to a coin, however you want to put it, that his interest might have peaked over a different aspect of it. And that's an outsider looking in because you're involved in the intimate thing, like going on like right now, like here's how I feel, here's how you feel. There's ignoring, there's not talking, there's hate, there's this, there's that. There's a long-term relationship there. Like I'll just say this. I always had a great relationship with Phil. There were things that, him and I might not have seen eye to eye on, but was there ever fighting? No. I mean, I think when I was involved in the show, it was just, I came on, we talked as we talked about, and, I'd go on with my day. Like when I stepped away, it was easy. It's different with you guys. Like you guys couldn't just step away. Like there was a lot more involved there. And it's not that I didn't have a big involvement and a big growth for it, I think. But
I think for me at the point where, because I didn't, once he told me that, because Jordan called him out and was like, so now you're interested. And he's like, oh yeah, now this is different.
Right.
The part that I did leave out was going back to when I thought he was sabotaging the trip with the shots. He admitted that. And when he called me that one night, the last time we talked, he told me
he was doing it on purpose.
He was doing all of that on purpose, and I asked him why. Because the day he also told me that the day he got in the car, he just said, "I don't know why I got in the car, and I just didn't want to do this trip." I'm like, okay, you should have spoke up. Because said something, right?
Right.
So there wasn't anything like I asked him, did I do anything prior to cause anything? He's like, no, I was in the mood, just didn't want to go. I feel that's not a good reason to purposely sabotage a whole project. Like you purposely set angles wrong. He's like, yeah, I peaked your audio on a lot of stuff on purpose because I tried to go through and edit this stuff and it wasn't even usable. So like I spent thousands of dollars on that trip, and can only use a portion, maybe, if that, or just basically is thrown away.
So regardless of all that, do you think you and Phil could still?
As far as the business side of it, absolutely not, and I don't think even personally at this point. Like, I still have good. I can look back upon a lot of the stuff because I've recently watched some of our old Toy King stuff, and it's really fun. Mm-hmm. Like, I can tell, like, once we're in the zone, we're great, and it was a good time. I can still look back on it, and it was a good time, but I don't think I could ever work with Phil, and I'm not a person to say never type of thing, but hearing him just say, like, yeah, I purposely sabotaged this project, it's like, how could I ever trust the guy again?
What about you and Jordan? Anything bad, good with that?
Nah, Jordan's Jordan. I mean, so for me on a personal level, like, I enjoy spending time with people that don't think the same way, because it gets me to see that world differently.
Okay.
And Jordan is one of those individuals. Jordan, I love you. If you're watching this, you probably not, but I love you, man. But we definitely don't see the world the same way. Yeah. Politics wise, views wise, jokey wise, even he says some stuff sometimes that's pretty dark.
I think me and you are on that same boat, though. I mean, when I was involved, you know me, I think politics were different. I think I have some dark humor. I say a lot of words on here you never. I remember when we did Toy Kings, just to interrupt you, is you used to put a little ninja guy in front of my mouth because I could not control myself, and you'd always come afterwards, and you'd be like, Jake, this is going out for kids. I need you to try to watch your mouth. And I said, well, you can on the camera. And then you started putting the ninja on my mouth, which was funny. It was great.
Oh, yeah. No, that was great for just that. Like, I don't mind. Like, I have a dark sense of humor, too. Yeah. Sure. I can get inappropriate really, really quick. Yeah. And I try to keep a clean mouth for just, the viewerships and stuff and ads, ad friendly, type of thing. But Jordan's dark sense of humor can go way
Good
too
for
far.
Him. Good for him. I'm all for it.
Well, it can get a little racy.
Like
racial.
I'm an Anthony Jeselnik fan. You know what? Hey, here's the thing. If you can make a joke about it, there's humor out there. Let it happen. Somebody's got to laugh somehow.
It's tough.
Somebody's got to laugh somehow, Chris.
There's if we're in a room like right now, you can make some jokes. That's fine.
You can. There's time and place. I agree with that.
When we're in public, and the person who's walking like 2 feet
There's a
away.
time and place for everything. Yes, I agree with that. I agree with you. Know your audience and know your place. I know your role and shut your mouth, as Rock would say. But you know what I mean. I understand, but I also think there's a freeing joy to that. Whether you get to see the guy get their ass kicked for talking too much, whether you get a chuckle out of the joke, whether the other person turns around and goes, that was actually pretty funny. There's a lot of nuances behind that, Chris. That's what I said. Me and you are different too. We see differently on those things.
Well, yeah, and again, like I love or I enjoy or appreciate being in a room with people, having conversations that they have different points of views on things, because maybe I'm wrong and they can change my mind on stuff, or I'm not out there to change other people's minds, but like I'm just very open to change or open to I'm flexible, if I'm doing something one way for a year, that doesn't mean that's the right way, right? And so I'm open to being finding other ways to go about everything. Hey, real quick, I wanted to remind you guys about the members area. Yeah, there are some amazing perks by becoming a member of the Spitfire Club, such as extended versions of Just Another Podcast and extended versions of YouTube videos and early access to said YouTube videos, and exclusive monthly signed photos sent to your door, and access to the members exclusive Spitfire Club t-shirt. But that's not all. There is now an exclusive members-only Zoom call. Yeah, we have our club meeting. We sit down, we chat, we talk about things that we're into, things that we're struggling with, things we want to improve, and special guest appearances from other like-minded content creators. It's so much fun. If you want to become a member today, there is a link in the description below. I'll see you in there.
But see, you're bringing up a good point when you're talking about this, and the fact, and I'll admit this. So I have 2 shows right now. I have the Bleach Brothers podcast, which we've talked about with me and B-Word, and I have the Hateful Gnome Music Hut, which started as a side project with my buddy Gnome from Dad's on Dayquil, where we interview bands and we talk music. And that started out as a joke, I'd message him hey, check out this band. He'd do vice versa, and we really got into it, and then we just found the joy that we would love to talk music and introduce stuff. I'm a hard person to work with, though, Chris. I don't feel like I was with you. I don't, and you can tell me if I'm wrong here. I think the one thing I appreciate in life is people that know who they are. So if you're a girl that likes to sleep around and you know that about you, good for you. If you're a jerk and you know you're a jerk and you can walk in the room and say, I'm an a-hole, I know that. I have more appreciation for you than the person who lies about it and says, no, I'm a nice guy. No, you're not. You're an asshole, but you're gonna,
Sure. No,
I know
totally
at times I'm hard to work with. I know I have a different sense of humor. I know the joke is I'm usually the talent. I just show up and do it. But there's also a difference of performing, and I know I can perform. You turn on a mic, and I usually can make it happen, or a camera or whatever. But it's the fact that I love the people I work with, and I'm sure they feel the same way about me. There are times that they annoy me or do this and that. But do you feel you, Chris, are hard to work with sometimes?
I feel I used to be really bad.
Okay.
I had a particular vision and I wanted it. I didn't care
Okay.
about what the people did. I know in the very beginning I was very bad. And I think I've progressed in a way to where I've been way more flexible.
Okay.
But I still put my foot down at times if I'm adamant about it. But I look at the bigger picture of things as well. And I think that's where Phil and I butted heads a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Because I look at the bigger picture. I'm like, if I'm putting in 98% and somebody says, I want it this way. I'm like, okay, interesting. Elaborate, please. Tell me why you like this. And it's just, I just want it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. No, that's not good enough reason.
Do you feel between me and you?
Sure.
I know you invited me back, and we've always enjoyed talking. We have our own, are we cousins? Are we not? Relationship bull crap. But was I hard to work with?
No, I wouldn't say so. I've always felt like we worked well together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I never had any problems.
See, I felt like we got a lot done. I felt like there was different mindsets of like, I was a very organized person. I'd come in with a set and go, hey, we're going to get through 20 episodes today, and here's what we're talking about, and here's how we're going to do it. I try not to be a control freak. I think there's a level though. You got to treat it like they taught us well in high school, right? You'd always get in a group project, and there'd be 1 to 2 people do all the work, and the other 2 would be there. And at times, maybe Phil or Jordan, whoever else you're working with, was somebody that sat back at the time.
Yeah.
But I felt like what we did was fun. It was great. It was good. It was a good episodic tale of toys. No matter how we did it, how we talked about it and did all that. I never felt you were hard to work with in the sense like we got stuff done. But I like self-acknowledgement though too. Like, we're sitting here talking about people, and I think sometimes it's important to sit back and reflect on yourself too. Like you're all about cameras. It's all about a moment that you take a picture of, right? Like, hey, like let's take a picture of myself and how was I in that moment? Do you feel during those times on the road or anything with Phil or whoever else you want to get into today, was there moments of you reflected on one with mistakes, but other things that you would take back?
That's a good question. Take back. I think maybe I would just approach the whole trip differently, and maybe just not have gone.
Okay.
I tend to overlook certain things when it comes to all sorts of stuff. Like I'll look at the bigger picture. I'm like, and ask myself, is it worth it if I put 10% more in than the other person? Yes, most of the time, because I'm passionate about this thing. Otherwise, I wouldn't have even started it. Right. So looking back now, the red flags were there ahead of time, because I was having to force feed Phil to do certain things, because I put in about 3 weeks of work just for that, 12-hour live stream event. And it wasn't until that 12-hour event I even saw any of his work. That was the first time, because he brought some on and we shared some of our high school projects and some stuff. And I finally got to see some of his actual work, and it was really exciting. It was really cool because he's very talented.
Right.
But anyway, doing all that work, like I did about 2-3 weeks of prep, finding the guests, creating graphics, setting up production and things, and Phil didn't finish that until basically the day of. And I get people work differently, at different levels, different speeds and things,
right?
And don't share the same level of
enthusiasm and getting stuff done,
passions, whatever. I get that. But I was still at the same, I just can't overlook how much was put into it when this was actually his idea. That 12-hour event was not my idea.
Right.
That was all Phil. He's like, hey, we should do a fundraiser and do a 12-hour event or a giant live stream. I'm like, that's a brilliant idea. Let's do that. And I told him, like, this is what it's going to take. And he's like, okay. Well, I'm like, I can do this. You do that. Let's do it. And he was like, let's do it. And like, we did it. And then by the end of it, he did a great job during. He was in charge of writing comments and stuff. He did excellent. Everything was great. And then, but leading up to it, it's just like, man, how much like babysitting do I have to do with just one adult individual
For one thing, yeah.
You know, which is, I have a lot of patience. I really do. To answer your original question, or if I were to change anything, I probably would have read a lot of these red flags along the way, and then maybe just confronted Phil. I was like, you know what, this isn't working out.
Nice.
You know, and just moved on. So I do have one question for you about Toy Kings.
Okay.
I remember it was like 2018, I think. We were doing it was just you and us doing it, and we were putting out videos. It was great. But I remember like I texted you a couple of times to like meet up to film, and I never heard back from you. So I was wondering what the heck happened.
There were times, so I was in a change of career, if you remember, where I was moving up. So I was moving company to company, and I was having a baby.
That's right.
And so that's, sorry, Chris, that takes a little bit of instead of a toy king, I was a baby king. No, it was the point where I told you I had to take a little bit of a step back. In the sense I was going through some changes in my life where TV was blowing up. I was still doing the radio thing. I was trying to be a full-time dad. I was already a dad and then having another kid. Yeah. We were in the middle of trying to buy a house, and I was doing a career change. And you just have to start evaluating things like how much bandwidth do I have to put out there?
No, for sure.
And where are the levels? And I never meant to ignore you, because I would always eventually respond and say, hey, here's what's going on. I can't deal with this right now, or this is not the time. But I also felt because I mean, if you notice, just being up front when we talk, it's a lot of Phil and you talk. And there were times me and you did it, but I always knew I was the third guy. I was well aware I was the third wheel.
Well, not really.
Well, to a point. I mean, every reunion you've had.
You've been there.
Oh, yeah,
There's only been one.
What I'm saying, but I've been invited. But it's like I was never on the road. I was never the road guy with you guys. I was never the guy like when you guys relaunched and did your whole relaunch thing of like Toy Kings is back. I was never that guy. And like I said, I have no ill feelings about that.
Never. You know, I'm sorry.
That's fine. But see, I don't have an ill will about it. But it's the point that as I said, I appreciate people that know who they are. I always knew I was the third wheel. I knew there was a driving force with me, whether we were a tricycle or whatever. Like there was things that I brought to the show that were different. There were things that I didn't, though. There were times like when Lego Jit Phil would start talking about, unless it was Mr. Lepin, who I was a huge fan of. I didn't have as much nuance about Legos or anything. And to me, they were bricks that went together, and you could build something. And great, there's sets, and you guys taught me more. I think it was fun for interviews where I could talk about things. I would try to bring different stuff. Like I remember one time we were at the convention downtown where I was the one making sure that we could actually film people. You guys were like, we could just film, and I'm like, no, let's ask for permission to everybody. And there's a difference that goes with that. But no, I always felt I was a third wheel, and there was, like I said, for me, it wasn't a problem. I've worked enough in the media, Chris, where I understand my lot.
It was more of like, I think, like an oversight than anything. It wasn't personal.
But like I said, I didn't care. But when you're asking if I was ignoring you, no, because like I said, we've talked all these years.
Sure.
I've always came back and said, this is what's happening. And I've always given you an answer. There's never been no, you pissed me off. There was this and that. Were there times it was hard to work at certain things? Yeah. But other than that, I felt like we produced a project.
Yeah.
We did a good job. But you have to understand that there's a difference of the outsider looking in.
Sure.
And when I would show up, I knew that, and I hope you knew this. If you turned the camera on, I was gold. I could talk. I didn't need a lot of direction.
Yeah.
I could handle it. I knew the angles where I needed to stand. I knew how to ask questions and do all that.
You brought that to the table, which was nice because we didn't know that.
Right.
I mean, I was very green as all of all aspects of it.
Right. But yeah, I was like, yeah, I can sit here. I know where to look. I know where to do this. I know how to do that. I can talk. I can take 1 or 2 takes. Don't ask me to do 30. But other than that, I can make it work. Toy Kings was you guys, and I was cousin Jake.
I think you were more of the King's table.
Well, yeah, but that was my meaning behind it.
But
is
sure,
that
I get what you're saying.
I also understood that if this went down the road somewhere, that I was King's table. Sure. I would, if we were at the table and we were going to have a game or talk about that, I was there. If Toy Kings was happening, I might be involved in the interview, but most of the time I'm not traveling, I'm not doing this and that. So I also understood my lot when you would text me, because also I'm in the sense of, is Toy Kings alive or dead? Are you and Phil? Because I was in the middle of you and Phil a few times where I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. And you know me, like I'm the impartial. I'd step aside and go, well, they're not having a good day today, so I'm out.
There was never like a discussion that Phil never had, like, oh, where's like, is Jake out? Or if you just said, hey, I want to be more a part of this, you're in.
But I also, as I said, I appreciate who I was for the show. I did not need to be as involved as you guys because also I knew the impartial nature of myself. I understood that if you guys had every toy on the table, I could talk to you maybe about 2 out of 10.
Well, the funny thing is, like I didn't know that much about toys. I owned that toy store, but like I didn't know like all that stuff. It was more like for fun.
It was for fun, but there was also the fact that too, you got to understand that when we're reviewing stuff, I mean, the whole joke came out about Mr. Leppin because of me, right? But
Yeah, no,
I
it's all
mean,
you.
you explained Leppin the whole time. Could I sit there and have an hour-long video about Leppin? No.
In my early days, I mean, I learned a lot making all that stuff. It's kind of how I got to this point. That's why you're no longer sitting on a bin.
Yeah.
For those at home, there used to be a bin.
There used to be the bin, and somebody had to sit on it.
Literally a Rubbermaid container bin. But anyway, like I learned so much stuff as far as interviewing people and talking and stuff. But like trying to have a balance of the interests I liked versus, and also for the co-host or whatever it is, like Phil. And so a lot of the Lego talk or Leppin talk was for Phil. So that way he could be passionate about it and talk, and then I can have stuff to talk about. So I always felt like you had to have that balance back and forth when you're working alongside, a particular person.
I never felt it got to the point where me and you needed to have an argument or really hash it out. I think you knew I would always be there, and I always knew you would be there. You knew if something came up that you could call on me, and I'm down for an interview, and I like in my time frame and everything. Like when you guys did the 12-hour special, of course I was there. But if you really look on the outsider view, it was you two, and I was an invitee, and that's why I always knew my lot.
Yeah.
I always knew my role, and I was okay with that. And so to me, there's not a problem. It's not. But when Phil was out and Toy Kings was still being driven sort of on your shoulders, I knew I was more King's Table. It's like, well, then why am I here? Why am I involved? And that's just being upfront.
No, I mean, appreciate that.
And that's the fact. There was no ill will. There was no problem. It was just I was the third partner, and I understood that, and I felt I brought a lot. I felt we all did, but it's always been more you and Phil, and I was the media guy.
I guess I felt more like I had to cater to him because he would get. I feel like because even when I brought Jordan on more like. Not more. He came on a few times. Like Phil got threatened, and he would throw a fit in the beginning because he's like, "Well, now you're just trying to replace me,"
right?
Type of thing. And so I think that may play a factor in.
That's
but
fine.
I guess I'm just kind of more or less making excuses at this point.
Right.
But yeah, I know. I never consciously thought that, and so I'm sorry because
like
I had a great time making it.
I don't need an apology because I'm one of those. I understood, but. That's like it all makes sense now if you correlate it.
And so this year has been, like I said, the kind of pretty eye-opening for me in a lot of aspects where like I can't try and make the people in my life be as passionate or be involved in what I'm doing. I have to go find new those people, and they're very hard to find.
Yeah, and I mean we run into the same problem on our show. I mean we have a lot of guests. If I could just be candid about what Bleach Bros is doing,
that was another question I was going to lead into. This is perfect. I forgot. I'm still wearing this jacket. I wanted to represent, man.
Oh man, look at that! You bought the holiday gear. Yeah, that's a special edition holiday gear, man.
Edition, man.
Oh hell yeah! Thank you.
For those listeners at home, I'm wearing a Bleach Bros holiday.
That's right. We had
shirt.
3 versions come out. Like, stop looking at my balls. That shirt.
Oh yeah, man. This is the only time I'll get to wear it,
dude. No, because I mean, it's funny because we have special edition merch launch every couple months. Like our number one seller to this day is still the FTGK, F the Golden Knights. Everybody knows how I feel about that.
For those people who don't know, Jake's a sports guy.
Yeah, and I hate the Golden Knights for the passion. There's a long list. It's not just blind hatred.
But Jake just hates everything anyway.
That's right. I'm Jake the Hater. I mean, that's what my name is on the show. But what I was going to say is we book a lot of people to interview, right? Mm-hmm. And dude, you would not. And you know this. So many people flake.
Yeah.
And also people come on and don't have the passion you do, or what are we going to, and so it takes a lot. Like we feel for our show, we roll out the red carpet.
Yeah.
In the sense that we let people come on, we have it all organized. We have, we record typically Wednesday nights and we release every Sunday. It's just a basic schedule, we do about an hour episode, but we have a lot of times where people come on and we give them a whole rundown. Like we come up with the topics, everything, and not prepared. Not carrying, own agenda. And the goal in the media is to make it work. So, I mean, we've had people
yeah.
where we've sent a rundown. They're like, yep, it looks great. And then, they come on and I mean, there was a perfect example. There's one episode I'm not the biggest fan of, and I'll just say that. We had a guy come on and he wanted to talk about conspiracy theories. And he's like, hey, can I please
should have called Phil for that one.
Talk about this, and so he came up, he pretty much wrote the rundown for us.
Okay.
We're like, all right. And he came on, and it came time to where, we did the intro, we do our normal thing where we intro banter, we talk, and then we introduce him, and we let him talk about his show for a while, and then we go, okay, we ask him the first question about conspiracy theories, and he goes, I don't really have an answer. Come back to me. And we're like,
oh my gosh.
This is also you're the guest. We're interviewing you, and so it's frustrations like that. The funny thing is with the Hateful No Music Cut. I will say this: have we had people flake on that show? Yeah, but artist to artist is a lot easier of a project.
Oh, I can definitely. Yes,
and I'm not saying that people don't make podcasts and that people aren't artists, but a band's goal is to get their music out there and get people to listen to them and to work with people and market and do all that. A podcast mission is to market and get people to listen and get it out there. And so we're doing a twofold. We're getting people to listen to music, listen to the playlist, listen to this band, ask weird, fun questions, not just the normal stuff, but then help promote their stuff. And it's like, it's a twofold. It's very different when you have, and you've had guests like this, I'm sure, in any factor where it's like they come on and they're in it for themselves. And there's nothing wrong with that in the sense of, you should want to help promote yourself.
Sure. But
also the goal should be to help promote the person you're working with instead of, hey, this is about me. You invited me. I'm not that important. I'm here to promote Bleach Bros. I'm here to hash out and talk about stuff we used to do. I'm also here to help support your show. It's a threefold trifecta, the Zelda Triforce, if it were, right?
Right.
But I think people miss that. I think people go, oh, I was invited. It's all about me. It's like, yes and no. The biggest frustration with being somebody that creates something, right, and is trying to grow, is the fact that I'm going to go back to when people ask me for a free hat, right? Yeah. Like the BS that comes with, hey, what can you do? And you're just looking at them like going, you're the same guy that goes on Facebook and says, you should support the small coffee shop and buy the $3 coffee down the road.
Are you going there then?
I understand podcasts aren't for everybody. I understand my language isn't for everybody. I understand the topics I talk about are not for everybody.
Things like that.
But it's the fact that, I don't know, actions speak louder than words, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's not hard to hit a subscribe button. I mean, I watch Just Another Chris. Now, do I watch every episode? No. I'll be flat out honest on here.
Because it's more of an interest thing. Do you have any interest in instant photography?
No. No.
I thought.
I tune into a few. You know me, I support. I've subscribed. I like. There are things that I'll watch for 30 seconds. There are things I'll watch the whole time. There are things I'll comment on. There's things I'll talk to you about afterwards.
Sure.
But it's the fact of just basic support. And I'm not saying you need to go blindly support everybody.
No.
But it's the fact, though, too, that there is hard work that goes into it. And so when somebody's going to flake out on you or act like this or treat it like it's just a business that you can just throw money away at them at all the time when they don't support anyways, it's like, why?
Yeah.
So, but thank you for the shirt, dude. I hope you like it, dude. We try to make some cool, legit gear.
Yeah, no, it's pretty cool.
But
I like it. I figured this is probably the only opportunity I'll get to wear it. Maybe
hell yeah,
next
dude.
Year.
Christmas time. Hail Krampus. No, the Salty Hippo Nation hats were cool because, I mean, that's, side note, that's what our fans are called. They're our Salty Hippos. The whole joke came because we're Bleach Bros, right? That Sal the Salty Hippo is our mascot.
Sure.
And the whole reason is, if you really get, like me being a nerd I am thinking into it, is bleach is made from sodium hypochlorite. Okay. So sodium is salt. Hypo sounds like hippo, and then chlorinate, right? So we came up with Sal the Salty Hippo. And if you look at our logo, he has the one with Sal is he's flexing, and on his arm is NaClO, which is the chemical compound makeup of bleach. So we thought every tiny little detail into this, but it makes sense. But no, we have our Salty Hippo Nation out there. Our president is Gunner, our youngest fan, which, kudos to his parents who have the Happy Hour podcast, but they let him listen to our stuff, and sometimes it's not appropriate for him, but you know what? Good for him. Gunner is our El Presidente out of Tennessee.
So why don't you talk about what your podcast is about? Is there a focus?
Yes and no. Here's the problem I have is when we started, I mean, so we're everything and nothing, and I'm not saying like we're like Seinfeld.
I was going to say you're Seinfeld now?
No, but it's the fact that like we'll talk about Marvel movies. We'll talk about food because I'm a chef. We'll talk about sports. We'll talk about pretty much whatever we want. Like we have segments called Everlasting segments, and it started with the Everlasting Jukebox where we picked, the greatest albums of your lifetime, and you put them in this jukebox that lasts forever. Well, then from that came the Everlasting Movie Reel, where we ranked the greatest Leonardo DiCaprio movies of all time. Or we try to do two things. We talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about, to be honest.
Yeah, that's
like
fine.
It's two best friends just having fun, but also we try to cater to our guests. So there are times we'll have a guest on, and we're like, what are they into? So like a big friend of the show and fan of the show and a guest a lot is Travis Demers, the voice of the Trailblazers.
Nice.
And he comes on a lot and he talks sports with us. But we've had requests, like we have Jordan Robinson coming up soon, where he covers the Cover O podcast, and they have a lot of their sports. And he said, can we talk hip hop? And we're like, of course. So we're going to do a whole episode on music and hip hop and best albums of the year and stuff like that. And so we try to make it just a good experience for the guest. Also, whatever we want to talk about at the time. We have a lot of fans that tell us like, hey, I love the baseball episode. Can't listen to the Marvel crap, don't care. And vice versa. I think it was our biggest downfall at first. I think we really read into like, oh man, we really need to, because we had a lot of friends that were like, you guys need to have a focus. Like you just need to be a Marvel show. And then I was like, but do I want to talk about that every week?
Right. There's a strategy that goes in with that. Like for me, when I dialed in my Just on the Chris YouTube channel more on photography stuff, instant growth. Well, pretty much overnight, basically. But you just have to be passionate about that one particular passion. And a podcast is kind of cool. That's why I started this one where, like, I went into this. I've been wanting to do a podcast for years. But I'm like been stuck on like, what am I going to talk about? I got to focus on that. And last month or so, I'm just like, you know what? Screw this. I'm just going to start it and figure it out as I go and just kind of do what I want because it's just going to be for fun. Because I got the YouTube channel and stuff going along. This is for like the extra, the dedicated fans of the channel. They want to come on and listen or watch and stuff. And so I'll just talk about what I want. Like I'll have you on. We're not talking about photography stuff at all.
No, we're just talking about just like catching up.
This is great.
The one thing was it started out as a joke, to be honest. Okay. Me and B-Word talked every night, almost every night. We talked a lot. On the phone. And, I used to do stand-up comedy. He used to, I've done a lot of things, and he's always supported my media stuff. And my wife kept joking, like, why don't you guys just release it and see what happens? Like, record it. And so we started recording. And I'll tell you this, though. The one thing about me, is I'm a preparer, and I like to, and we recorded for about 3 to 4 months and didn't release anything. We practiced and made it work and edited it and see what we could do right and wrong. And the worst part was we were all ready to go. And the first episode that was ready to launch, something happened to the audio and it'll never come. And we feel it was like one of the greatest episodes ever.
Of course,
we reviewed.
Because it's the one you
can't have. We reviewed the Mortal Kombat movie, which was garbage, by the way. And but it was so easy to do.
Yeah, your friends is talking, having a good
and
time.
It'll never happen. And we tried everything. Like we sent it to pros in the industry, like audio, and they were like, it's unsalvageable. Oh, yeah. But it's one of those things like. It started as a joke where we talked, and we're like, all right, let's just release it and see what happens. And then all of a sudden we had fans listening, and we're like, okay, it's probably our grandmas and this and that. And then growth kept happening. And we're not those people like, oh, we're just doing it for fun. Let's be upfront with ourselves. Anybody that produces something in media, yes, it's fun, but you also are trying to do something with it. Whether you care.
If you can turn it into a job, then do
it. Exactly. If this could be my career, hell yeah, I'll do it all day. But we've seen growth over time, and we've seen the ebbs and flows, and we had to go through that and how you deal with it and how you advertise and what works and what doesn't and all the stupid little nuances that go behind the scenes. Like it turned into, we talk 1 hour a week, like we said. And I think people just think like, like YouTubers, all you do is you just turn on the camera and you just release it. It's like, no, but you know how much preparation goes into writing the script and booking the guests and like doing the editing and coming up with the graphics and doing the marketing. There's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And we still have regular jobs, and we're dads, and we're trying to do this and that, and we work with other shows, and we guest on other shows, and now I got 2 shows out of it. But we're a show that's just 2 friends BSing when we want, talking about what we want, and we didn't fall into the trap that I think most young creators do when they first come out going, I'm going to listen to every little critique that somebody gives me and I'm going to change. And the perfect example I have is one of my first bands I was ever in Vegas. I was in a ska hardcore band, right? Ska-core. Ska-core. And I was in a band. I was just in college. I was 17. And all my bandmates were like 14 and 15-year-olds. And every time they're like, this guy hates our music. And this person says we should do this. And I finally sat them down at the table. I said, all right, what's your least favorite band? They said Streetlight Manifesto, which is a very successful band at the time. And I said, what do you not like about them? And they told me everything. And I said, okay, but they sell a lot of albums, right? They're like, yeah. I was like, well, there's somebody out there that likes them. Like, so I'm like, so we can either cater to Tiffany down the road who tells us everything sucks and we should change this all the time, and cater to that one person. And there's other people that will agree with her, or we can just keep doing what we're doing and see what happens. And that's what we did with Bleach Bros. We didn't fall in the trap of we're only going to be a comic book show. We're only going to be a food show. And the other side, it is our downfall at times, because when people ask me what my show's about, it's really hard to describe in the sense of like, because when you tell people it's just two people talking, they're like, well, that sounds boring. I should sit on the Max and just listen to people talk. But no, it is cool too, because it's rare, Chris, you know this in life, to have friends that long. I mean, B-Word Brian has been my best friend since second grade. Wow. And it does make recording easy, because we have the camaraderie. It's easy to talk. Chemistry is a big thing for shows with multiple hosts. Yes. I commend you, because I'm somebody like this. I feel like I'm good in front of the camera and a lot of media sense. I'm not a number one, though. I know that about myself. Hence why I could understand I was the third wheel with Toy Kings, right?
The thing is that you're better than the two of us.
But here's what I mean, though. I'm a good number two. I'm good with people around me. If you would have just had me do the show by myself all the time, it would never happen.
Like, what do you mean? Like, is it like people wouldn't watch, or like it just wouldn't happen for like motivation wise?
No, it just wouldn't happen. It wouldn't have the same nuance. Like, for example, like football, right? There's always John Madden would have been a terrible host by himself.
Okay.
John Madden was great color commentary. He had great things to say. He could not lead talking about the whole game himself. I know that I'm a John Madden. I know I'm not an Al Michaels.
That's fine, because I feel the same way about myself. That's why when I started this podcast, I'm only doing it with guests. Right. I will not do it by myself.
Right. Do you feel like that's a factor? Because like when you do, and I'm just not saying it's a crutch, but I'm trying to word it the best way I can. When you have cameras and stuff, you have something to lean on. You have a product to lean on that you're going to discuss. When you're doing the podcast, for example, unless it's about like a certain topic, or a guest, you don't have that thing to lean on to venture into. Like, I can venture into this Tasmanian devil Polaroid on the table right now and talk about it. Like, this is what I'm talking about today, so let's get into that. And I have every little nuance I can talk about it, instead of just going, it's Chris today, I'm going to talk about cameras, here's how I feel.
Yeah.
That's a different art.
It is. That is. And I commend people that can do that, because, man, I know some people that can.
Yeah.
And I've edited some people's podcasts and videos and stuff like that and more recently, and I'm like, wow, they just went at it and just did it. And like, that's crazy. I don't even feel I can do that.
Again, knowing who you are, knowing what you do. For anybody that's going to, watch or listen to this and wants to get into this stuff, it's just, it doesn't mean you have to go, oh, I'm going to make a show about coffee mugs and I can only talk about coffee mugs. Like, you can do that. That's great. That'll happen. You'll probably see fast growth, like you said.
Yeah.
Because people jump into it going, I'm really interested in this, and the people that follow it are really into it. But is that growth sustainable, do you think, Chris?
No. If you're, especially, well, it depends on the format. So, like, for a podcast, I would say no. I feel like if you're doing YouTube or like TikTok or any sort of other like video form based stuff, I guess it wouldn't necessarily have to be video form. Like blogs, I guess, would be a good one too. Focus is key, and consistency is key. My view on like a podcast is more of like getting to know those people, right, on a different level, and you learn new things and different things that's not necessarily like in the realm of whatever the topic of that channel is. Like, I'm a diehard fan of like Corridor Digital. Like, I've been following them forever, pretty much since they started. And they have a podcast. I don't listen to every single episode because I read the topics. I'm not interested in that, but some of them pique my interest and I watch. And it's a great way for other people, though, to watch their stuff where it's not about like their filmmaking stuff. They're talking about like crypto sometimes, or they're talking about AI, all that stuff that's going on with that, or different worldviews and things. And so it's a different way to connect with your audience. I feel that's a podcast. Yeah. But if you want to focus your stuff, I would just stick that to like YouTube, Instagram, whatever it is, and you'll see massive growth. And that definitely is sustainable, and depending on what it is. I thought I was going to run into more of a problem when it comes to instant photography, because it is a very, very small community that I'm targeting. It's very, very small. And I thought I'd be running out of ideas at some point.
Right.
But I've got a whiteboard out there with like hundreds of ideas, plus some in my phone, and it's still all in the same realm of the focus. So that's great. However, going along with this is sustainability, I would add in the burnout part of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're focused on something for so long, you might get a little tired. And I'm not at that point, but I know I'm consciously aware of that. So I'm trying to add in this, where it's not the same. I can do a podcast, talk about some other things, and it goes out onto the channel, and that counts as a video, counts as everything, and it keeps the algorithm going, keeps feeding that hungry YouTube. So that's kind of why I started it.
But see, you're getting into the burnout thing too, and there's two things, and we've shown it talking, about like Toy Kings, for example, right?
Yeah.
There's burnout in the way of, are you burnout over the topic and doing so much work? Is there also burnout of your co-hosts if you have them? Right. The good and bad of having a co-host, right? Like I said, I understand I can be difficult to work with at times, and I apologize to my co-hosts at times. But also, B-Word can be difficult. He understands that he needs a lot. He'll do those things where he'll send a message, and if you don't, and he sees you read it and you don't get back to right away, he's like, what the hell? I get that. Control.
Sure.
Gnome, same thing. Like he has his own life going on too, and we can't just expect this is all that there is. The Hateful Gnomes Hut, he has his other show. It's not just about that. Sure. So you have to look for the burnout too with your co-hosts, and and so one topic I brought up when we started seeing success with the Hateful Gnome Music Hut, they're like, hey, Jake, maybe we can do it weekly. I'm like, no, let's not burn ourselves out yet. The minute a creator hates the creation is the downfall.
Yeah. No.
The minute it becomes a job, and not that you can't make it a career, but what I mean by that is the minute you don't enjoy it and you're pumping it out. We've seen that happen so many times where you watch a show and you could tell the guy's just doing it because it's a paycheck at this point. And he just has to get content out. Like, the one key I've always learned is consistency is best. So like our episodes drop every Sunday, right? We have not missed an episode, whether that's figuring out during travel that we pre-record 3 episodes and make it work. However we need to do it, we do that. Because when we talk to a lot of podcasts coming up, we're like, what do we need to do? And they said, just be consistent. And we're like, well, what do you mean by that? And they're like, no, just make sure that fans know where they can find you, when they can find you, how they can find you, and what you're going to do. Yeah. And so we have a system now, and it's worked.
It builds trust with your audience too, because they can see that you're taking it seriously.
Well, it's like a restaurant. If you showed up all the time and their hours were, today we're 3 to 6, and tomorrow will be 9 to 12, and you're never going to eat there. And so, I mean, I see that all the time in the podcast community where you see people going, we're taking a break this week. And it's like, okay, like that's fine. But then it's like, they've taken 3 months off. They're back now. Let's announce this. And you're like, what? You can't sustain with that.
No, and it depends on the platform you're posting too as well. Like if you take too long of a break on YouTube, you can forget YouTube ever like notifying your viewers that you're posting a video again.
Right.
My good friend Dave, he was on the previous podcast, kind of like your friend with a B, where we'd have we'll have conversations for like 6 hours, 10 hours sometimes on the phone. Right. He lives in Ohio, and he has been around since the early days of YouTube. He has a channel that has nearly 60,000 subscribers, but he took a year off, and now he's like, my channel, like the view count wise, is astronomically higher than his. He gets maybe 400 views, 500 views on his YouTube channel, and he has 10 times the amount, 6 times the subscriber count. But I think he was at a burnout point, and that's why he took a break. But yeah, you can't really do that in this industry. So that's where burnout comes in. Mm-hmm. So having different outlets like a podcast, or if you're do YouTube videos like I do as well, like this is a great. That's like almost like a break. This is like a treat. I get to talk about other things and do it differently, even though it still counts.
Because remember, I used to work in radio and they fired me.
You want to tell them why?
I have a 52-page email saved to this day because I use female products live on the air, and what I mean by that is I was testing battery power with vibrating bananas. That's as far as I'll go. I've saved the email. 72
this was
pages.
In Vegas, right?
Yes, this was in Vegas. It was the highest rated show of the night too, in the year. It was, and the best part was it was on daylight savings on a Halloween, which fell on the same time around that. And it was we had a 4-hour talk show, and it turned into a 5-hour talk show.
Nice.
And I think they regretted giving us that extra hour because we did an extra hour with Energizer and Duracell. The Little Pink Bunnies won, by the way. The women enjoyed it. It was because we had live guests too. It was an awesome time. But anyways,
It's like the Howard Stern show.
exactly. Well, my co-host, the travesty at the time, who's still a great friend of mine, big supporter of the show, love the dude. Radio Ridges, dude. He's gonna watch, I know. He wanted to be Howard Stern.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't. And I'll say this: when we were in the parking lot, this is a funny story, side story on this.
Okay, that's fine.
He goes, we're smoking a cigar before the show. We used to do that a lot. And he goes, this is a bad idea. I said, okay, well, if you think it's a bad idea, let's not do it. No, we're doing it, but it's a terrible idea. I'm like, what's it? Well, little did I know is we had a script, and he was supposed to turn it in to the studio like we're supposed to with CBS, like to say, hey, we're doing it. And he goes, yeah, I turned it in. He never turned it in. He lied. So we get called in the office next day. But here's how cool it was. So in the sense of we get fired, right? We're getting fired. Everything's wrong.
We're fired. It's fine.
But they call us in and they're going through everything with us, right? Like you did this, you called them vibrato, because we were trying to be clever too. We called them vibrato bananas. We did all these things. Like we had all these clever things. Like we took this on Good Vibrations, and we said when you're going to give her some good vibrations, that would play. And like we had all these little segments and stuff, right? But we had a segment called "It's Too Hard for Radio," where we'd play a death metal song, and I'd come in, and I would leave the studio, and then Jay Hard would come in and, what are we doing? And I'd talk that way the whole time. And I would do all these fake people voices, and they were convinced that I was letting people in the studio and not me, and I would actually leave. So I did such a good job on the mic impersonating people that they thought other people were there and they weren't. So that was a cool moment, because I used to do all our ad spots too. I used to do like Meatwad from Aqua. Like, we do that stuff on the show, and it was fun. And that was a fun time in my life. I don't know. I didn't mean to get sidetracked, but I loved working with the travesty. It was. I will say this: it was the best and worst working relationship I ever had. I hated, like, when the mics were off, we hated each other. We'd yell at each other. And it's so opposite with me and B-Word. And I love him. Like, me and Travis still love each other to this day. But I think it's because we lived together. We were so close. There was all these problems, but also he was not organized. I was organized. We were at different places in our life. We loved music. He got me involved there, and it was a fun time. It was a good building block to where I'm at. There's learning opportunities, right? And it's not the end of the career if something ends on one project, another one can begin. And it's not saying that you always go out and try to find a new one. Well, Chris, thanks for having me on, bro. I hope you have a good Christmas, man. I know I'm gonna have a good Christmas.
You're gonna have a good Christmas?
I'm gonna have a great Christmas. I always have great. I have kids. Hail Krampus. I cut down a tree. I make dinner. I have family come over. We open presents. It's pretty simple. It's all it should be. What about you?
That's about it. We get drunk and open presents, get really loud.
Okay.
And then my dad gets mad.
Yeah.
And then maybe my sister-in-law gets mad.
Okay.
Which is fine. And then we go home.
We'll tell everybody I said hi.
Yeah. No, for sure. I really appreciate you coming on. And
of course, man.
I'll probably have to have it back on for some of the other juicy stuff.
Oh, we'll get into some other deeper stuff.
I got some deep stuff I've never even spoken about that I've loved your insight about. It sounds like you had some interaction with one of them, so it'll be pretty great.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Anything else you want to throw in? A plug? Check out your podcast, obviously.
Bleach Bros Podcast. I'm the regular chef on K2 up here if you're local. And then Hateful No Music Hut. Bleach Bros comes out every Sunday. You can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple, whatever. We're a Spreaker Prime podcast. I have to say that. And then Hateful No Music Hut every other Friday, interviewing new bands. So if you get a chance to check those out, definitely do.
Before you wrap up, though, I got something for you.
Okay.
Since I got one of your cool shirts, I got you a little something special.
Okay.
Here we go. I got you a little something.
It says, I was on the Just Another podcast with Just Another Chris. All I got was this lousy t-shirt. And then it says, make some art. I like that, bro.
Yeah.
Can't wait to wear that.
That's
good.
Put a lot of thought into that.
No, you did.
A lot of thought.
That's a good little slogan, man. Don't joke crap on yourself. The hater ain't gonna hate on it. I'm all about it. I can wear it. But thank you, buddy. Definitely. Thank you.
No problem, man.
Yep.
Have a good one. Whew. Now, that was an episode. I gotta say, that was pretty great to catch up with Jake and open up about a lot of things that I have never actually shared before. I've kind of kept that stuff to myself. There's a lot of areas that I would love to actually expand on further and talk about more. And after we stopped recording the episode, I briefly talked to Jake about maybe having him back on and doing a part 2 to some of this. And if you guys want to see that, definitely leave some comments down below and would love your feedback and maybe expand on your questions that you might have. And be sure to follow Jake on all his adventures. There's some links in the description to his podcast and how to find him. And again, thank you, Jake, for coming on the first ever in-person episode. Thank you again. Now, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Now, get out there, make some art.